right. Good morning. Welcome to another Random Code stream. This is a stream all about removing gotos from C#. Actually, not removing. Can't remove them, at least not easily, through a code fix. I'm still drinking my first cup of coffee. But at least we can detect them. And detecting them is half the battle. So, let me explain first what I'm getting into. But first, we're going to do the repeat all. All right, so you're going to do... That's not what I wanted you to do. You know, it's funny when I... Now, hopefully it does shuffle is off, repeat all. Okay. Hopefully it does that. I don't do something for a while. I've been thinking about recording a couple of videos now that are my free code session videos and doing them that are more making them more structured, because the way I used to do those videos is basically what I'm doing right now, which is a live stream, except I edited a lot of things out. But I do want to start making some of those here, there, and everywhere on certain topics. So I was thinking, I use TechSmith's Camtasia, and I haven't opened that up in months. It's going to take some time to get my head around. How do I use that again? Anyway, so this create an analyzer for goto usage. There's a talk that I do called Busting.NET Myths, and in there I talk about things that I think people have misinterpretations or views on C# and .NET. And one of them is that you can use goto. You can actually do a goto in C#. It's limited. You can't like do a goto where you can literally jump from one method body to another or things like that. That's not allowed. And there's other restrictions on it. But you can use a goto. I once saw years ago, during my consulting days, I was on a project and I stumbled across a method that had 8 gotos in it. And I'm like, how do you write a method that way? And of course, because I was curious, I was wondering, who wrote this? Because I wanted to have a talk with them. And it was the person who was the principal architect on the project. And so I emailed him and I said, hey, I stumbled across this and I'm thinking, why do you have 8 gotos in a method? And came back with what I thought was a very wishy-washy answer about, well, I couldn't really think of a way to handle the logic. It was really complicated. And I'm thinking, you really, really made it complicated by what you did. You made it almost impossible to follow. So, yeah, I was not a fan of that. And the reason I'm bringing this up again is because yesterday I ran into some code at work that had a goto in it. And I went, really? And I looked at the logic, and it was one goto in a method, and there was no reason to have it in there. That's been in there for years. No, it was not written by anybody on the team that's currently on there. It's what we inherited. But I thought, no, that's just, there's no reason to do that. And I say that, but I'm also going to put a caveat in there and go, but there are some times that it is. So before I get into writing this, there's a project. This is actually for the Busting and .NET Myths sample repository for the presentation that I use. And I have this app called Gotos and Roslyn. And so I wrote this because I wanted to look at, well, how many gotos are in the Roslyn code base. So I cloned the repo on my computer, and I just went through all the files, and I used a walker, which inherits from C# syntax walker. And I just wanted to find all the gotos. And so when you inherit from the walker, you'll notice that we create this and we say, just visit it, visit the root. And then we go through all of the things within that. So it just keeps going and going and going through. Well, what I found out was that in the Roslyn code base, there's over 900,000 statements. You know, Roslyn's code base is quite large. There are 115 goto statements, 453 goto case statement counts, and 115 goto defaults. Now, this could also be that my code is wrong, but I think it's correct. And it was interesting to me because it showed that even in the Roslyn code base, there are cases where they will use a goto. Now, you have to have a caveat here because, and as I'm talking through this is making me think, saying this might be test code because goto is a legitimate keyword in C#. So they have to have tests and everything around it to make sure that it's actually working the way that it should. This doesn't look and see, is this actually used in the code base? But the reason I did this is because I heard that they do have rare, exceptional, but valid cases where they use a goto because it makes things quicker. It's optimized to get through a certain parse point or something like that faster. So it would be interesting maybe sometime to go through this and say, in what file and where was this done? And do more analysis that way. So I've already gained something by babbling to myself this morning about this because now I'm interested to see where actually these statements come. But in any event, so I wrote this program just to show, yes, it does exist in large code bases, though you really have to have a good justification in my mind. And like the one that I found yesterday and the one that I saw over a decade ago did not, and they should never have been written that way. So I thought, well, let's go through and write a analyzer that that looks for gotos in C# and flags it as a warning, just to say, hey, I don't think you should really do this. So we're going to do that in my Transpire project. So, and I'm hoping to get this done in this stream. I don't think this should take longer than a stream's worth. By the way, I'm going to take my camera here and we're going to move it down to the bottom again. I've been moving it up when I play video games because usually closed captions at the bottom, and sometimes my camera view was hiding some of the text, so I moved it up. But I think for coding, it's better to have it down here. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we have a detect here. So we want to have detect. We'll call it detect goto analyzer. And then we have to rename some stuff. An analyzer that finds goto. Oh, we could say C. No, I hate that it does that. Lang. Usage. Okay. We're gonna need a scripter identifier. Detect goto. Let's rename this to goto usage. Yeah, that's better. So this will be 21. All right, and I'll make the doc in it later on. All right, so now we want to come down here. We want to have that, except the rule is going to be that. So we're going to have that. We want it to be a warning. I don't want it to be an error because it's not an error, but to me Goto detected. Strongly consider not using gotos in C#. All right. So we want to have detect the descriptor here. That initializes it then. Okay, so now see there's goto case statement, goto default statement, and these are not flags. So let's just have an analyze. Wow, stupid. Node. And so we're going to have a goto case statement here because all these are going to do the same thing. I think. Okay, we don't care about that. What is the node here? Oh. Well, this actually does make it easier. If we get into this call, we have an issue. It's as simple as that. That's weird. Why do I do that? Why wouldn't I just use the one that's cached here? I just noticed that I'm always creating a new one for everyone that I get. Whatever. So now we can just take this all out. And then, of course, we want expression bodies because that's my style. And that's it. Of course, now we need cases here for each one. So what we'll do now is we could grab this, put that there, say that. Well, that looks awful. There. So now we need go to default statement, go to keyword, go to statement. Now, I don't know if this is represents goto. I don't even know if I need all these four. Like, is using the goto keyword enough? I don't know. This is actually kind of interesting how this works. We're going to find out by writing tests. Okay, so and hopefully this is an analyzer that would never detect, that you would never run into. But you never know. It might be a huge code base. And somebody may have done some nefarious things in it. You never know. Okay, so let's first run this one, make sure this is correct. The coding streams are back. Well, this one is. Yeah, I haven't done one in a while. And I thought this just came up yesterday because of something I found at work. So I'm like, I think I want to address this. Analyze when goto does not exist. Whoops. Detect goto analyzer. Okay, there shouldn't be one in here. Okay. Now, what happens when we say goto exists? And yes, I'm going to have to actually look this up because I don't use it at all. So I'm like, oh yeah, so you put a label. Where's my code? Goto done, right? Is that how you do it? And then you say done is the label. And then console right line continue. Which is really stupid, but so let's actually do this, but then we'll take that out. So that should still be fine. Now this one should not be fine, but how many do we actually get? We get a warning. Strongly consider now. Yeah, that's our... Okay. You can also use the goto statement in the switch statement to transfer control to a switch section with a constant case label, as the following example shows. Okay, so we have go to case statement, go to default. I think that's what they're saying here is these examples. So okay, so let's get rid of all these other tests because we don't need them. Analyze when goto case exists. So now we're going to have run int value. So let's get rid of all this crap. And we want to say, again, switch value. Case 1, right? Oh no, it's a colon break. Case 2. Go to case. Oh wow, that that really sucks. Holy crap. Because then you switch up to that. Okay. First of all, is that valid? That's just saying you make the type internal, but that is valid code. What happens now? I should get an error. But we're only getting one diagnostic, which is interesting. you get here at the context node kind? You do. Let's actually look at this. I'm kind of curious if I run this. Because this is a keyword. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm in. Oh, that is not what I wanted. Just my... Enable just my code. What I wanted to do is... Come on. Debug. There we go. Okay. So now what is context node? It is a goto case statement. Okay. So it didn't actually hit because of it being... Why does it hit here? It's a goto statement. So I'm guessing when I do the default statement, the goto keyword is actually never hit. I don't think you can just hit it. Goto statement exists. Now we need to have a default. Within the switch statement, you can also use the statement goto default to transfer control of the switch section with the default label. I believe that means this. Default console, right, line, default. Let's check that, but I believe that is okay. That's how the default is. Control cannot follow a switch from final case label. Oh. There we go. So we need a break here. Again, old school switch syntax and cases and gotos are things I just don't do, so I don't know the syntax off the top of my head. So now this should be a goto default statement exists. And let's see what happens. Yep, goto default. All right, so now we actually have to add in that we're getting a diagnostic. Wow, I didn't even know about that switch statement goto. Yeah. I knew about it just because I remember reading reading about the language and things that you can do in it. that is something that's possible. But do you actually want to do it is the question. You know what I mean? And of course, no. I mean, we now have switch expressions. We have pattern matching. We have so many better ways of doing things in C#. So it's like, I would never write code like this. But like yesterday, the code that I saw was like, if a certain condition, go to, and then it had IL __ and a hex number, which meant somebody decompiled something, found it in IL DASM, saw that it was an IL label, and said, okay, I'm just going to use that and put it down at the bottom. But then there was this other code that did stuff, and then at the bottom it all did the same thing. I'm like, why did you do it this way? Just get rid of the goto. It makes it so much harder to understand what your code is actually doing, you know. So that's what tripped me. That's what triggered me yesterday, because I'm like, no. We're writing this analyzer. Okay, so now we need to have go to unit, deregionize this. So let's do some copy pasta. This one should be fine. Excuse me. But this one should be that. Except goto usage. And then we want to put that in here. Now these numbers are not going to be correct. So let's just run it, get the numbers, because then that's just easier. Oh my god, that is surrounded. Yeah, it is. Oh, that's what's expected. I was like, no, it shouldn't be on line 3. It should be somewhere else. That makes more sense. Okay, now that should pass. Oh, it doesn't. Why doesn't it? Oh, it should be warning. It still doesn't pass. Why is that? Warning. Okay, so here. Are we putting the wrong identifier? No. Oh, we are. Yeah, I fixed one, but not the other. See? Once again, this is why you write tests. There we go. Okay. That should all be... no, it wasn't. Although when I would have ran this again, this would have failed. Now it passes. Okay. All right. So now let's get this in with the other two. Again, the locations of these diagnostics are going to be incorrect, but we can just run it and get what it should be. That. All right, so now that's good. And what? No. Just run this. Make sure it's all good. Just tab down. Get the location. Put that in here. Run it. Let's run all our tests. All programmers are... Well, you called me old. Because I'm taking the compliment for me, but that's an interesting thing. I hope that's meant as a compliment my way. I don't know, but that is something that actually really is concerning me. The more that AI is being pushed is the fact that people are blindly trusting it. And yesterday, no, it wasn't yesterday, but this week, I've been using, because at a lot of companies, we get the push, we need to use AI. I tried using GitHub Copilot like in the code editor, and it drove me nuts. It was constantly suggesting things, and half the time it was wrong or not down the right path. When it nailed something, it was really good. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't have to type that code in. But it was almost becoming a hindrance. Now, that was months ago. Maybe I'll turn it back on and see if I can get some usage out of it. I've tried GitHub Copilot Chat, and I've had mixed results with that as well. That's a compliment, not telling you. Same experience again. Well, I am old. But anyway, so I was using chat, mixed results. But then Copilot added the feature that you could use it on PRs. And I thought, okay, that's cool. I'll try that because it seems pretty innocuous. If it can pick up things during a PR, that's great. We don't use it as a way to approve a PR. Our standard is you need 2 approvals. And which makes sense, but for many reasons, legal being one of them, we cannot have an AI approving our code. So, but I used it just to see if it would pick up anything. And to be fair, sometimes it does. Like, it will sometimes notice it's like I just copy pasted something and I put it into the changelog and it's like, hey, your version number is not matching the version number of the project. I was like, oh, that's actually cool that it caught that. So, okay, fair enough. I like that. It was telling me one time that the release date that I put into my changelog was in the future. And the date was literally that today, the day of when I was making the PR. I'm like, that's not in the future. That's today. Because I was going to release it that day. It was like a minor bug fix. I'm like, no, that's wrong. But then a couple days ago, this was great. So I was using something with a dictionary, and dictionaries don't have dictionary expressions, like a specific way to put in values in a dictionary right away. They're still hashing that syntax out. But dictionaries are collections, so you can initialize a dictionary using the blank collection thing. So I had like a ternary somewhere where I was going to initialize it if some condition, and then if not, it was going to be empty. And the code, I think, was making it like just a new dictionary by default. And Visual Studio was telling me, hey, you could make this a collection expression to initialize it to an empty dictionary. I was like, oh yeah, I actually like that syntax. So cool. Accept it. Everything compiles. Everything, all tests pass. Good. Make my PR. Copilot tells me that syntax is incorrect. Initialize your dictionary using new or something like that. And I was just stunned. I'm like, no, that's absolutely 100% wrong. It is valid syntax. It compiles. All tests pass. And it's telling me something that's just, I don't care that it contradicted what Visual Studio had as like a analyzer suggestion thing. The fact that it's telling me that legal C# is incorrect syntax, I internally blew a gasket. I'm like, no, this is just wrong. And this is what I really struggle with this stuff. I think, and I can't say internally where we're using it in some places that is actually beneficial, just because it's internal, proprietary stuff. So it is what it is. But there are cases where we're using it that I think makes sense. And I think it's a good thing. There are other places like this where I'm like, no, and this could actually steer a developer that's new-ish to something down a wrong path. I was talking to my wife yesterday, who's not a developer. She's not a technologist. She's an artist. She works at a school where she works with kids who have challenges, and so she's off for the summer. And we were picking up food for the family for dinner, and we were waiting, and we just started talking about AI. I think I was lamenting to her about the thing I just mentioned, and she said, she goes, I've noticed that searches, when I search for something now on websites, or I go like through Google or Bing or whatever, she goes, I see that AI things show up at the top. And she said, I saw that happen yesterday, and I looked at what it told me. She goes, no, that doesn't make any sense. She said, I went to Wikipedia. I actually looked it up there, and she's like, yeah, that what it gave me was completely like off. And I said, I have now, it's sad to see how search engines have turned into what used to be pretty good, have completely fallen off the face of the earth. And I completely skipped the AI section now. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's sad because I think we used to have something that helped us get, somewhat decent information, and now we're left with something that's giving us incomplete, invalid information. And I know I'm on a soapbox here, but it's what I'm seeing. And the only way to make something better is to be open about being critical about something. If you want something to be better, you got to say, hey, this is not good. It's not good for an AI and a PR to tell me that the code I added is invalid when it's perfectly fine. You know, oh, it's just hallucinating. Oh, it's just... No, that's not acceptable in my book. That is just simply not acceptable. You know, and again, there's things that I think are... The one thing I've been struggling with, but interested in looking at, is to say, I think we're getting into too much of using AI to just generate a whole bunch of code to get an app out there and be done. And we're forgetting the whole foundation of software, at least one aspect of reusability. And not that reusability should be a goal, but we don't want to repeat ourselves. We don't want to have like 12 different ways of doing something in code based on how AI or anybody generated 12 different applications. You know, if there's standards or things we want to do a certain way, we should enforce that. And so one thing I've been wondering is, if people do that, is, well, can we tease out certain parts so that we can have repeatability? To me, repeatability is also a huge thing. And I'm really concerned that we're going to get people that are just cranking out apps that have no reusability in them whatsoever. You know, I've been using ChatGPT successfully with custom prompt, like use the most recent. Copy paste the chat. Yeah, I can see that. This was just in Copilot, in the PR feature. So I have no control over that. You just say, when I'm making the PR, who do I want to do a review? You just pick Copilot. And so that's where that was coming up. But I think what is the thing I really like about tools is when they're deterministic. And when you have something that is not deterministic, that can potentially give you a different answer every time. Like if I write code right now with this analyzer that has a goto in it, if I write it, if Mitch writes it, if anybody else in C# writes it, it will always warn me if I have a goto in my code, and it won't if I don't. You know, I don't want something that sometimes catches that I'm using a goto or that I'm not. And that's a small example. But I want tools and things that are consistent with what they're doing. And that's a little bit of a concern that I have, is a little bit's an understatement, is that we're doing things that give people the same value add. So yeah, it's not I feel every developer is going to be losing their job. I actually think that there's eventually going to be a reckoning, in that AI is not going to go away. You know, none of this is going to go away, but I think we're going to learn real hard about where it works really well and where it doesn't. And we also need to have a reckoning on, you cannot just, take in what an AI tells you and assume it at face value that it's correct. I'm doing a talk on security from a software development perspective, because I'm not a security expert, but there's things I've seen and learned over the 30 years I've been doing development that I think are beneficial or people should consider. And one of them, this comes from so many people in the security, in the industry of security and cyber research and all that other stuff, is validate your input. Validate your input. That's like one of the biggest things to do. And this goes with AI. You need to validate that what it's telling you, all the tests it's generating and everything, are actually what you really want. Because anything can be an attack vector. Anything can be something that will try, to potentially sneak something in that's incorrect. And if you blindly assume that the input that AI is giving you is always germane, is always okay and clean, it's just a matter of time. You know, you got to validate it. You got to make sure it's doing what you want it to do. And that's the thing. If you do that and it ended up saving you time because it got you 95% of the way, maybe the 5% that it didn't is actually 5% that you can just, whatever. And none of it's a security risk. I'm all for that. I'm all for things making me code faster. I have nothing against that. But it's also, at the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for making sure that it's correct. So, I don't like the built-in IDE, Copilot, copy paste and chat, controlled approach. True. 100% agree with needing determinism and your point about people just cranking out apps without any care, supporting future. I do think, I'm not sure about this, but I do think one other reckoning that may be coming is a fallout where there's a market for people to go in, for consultants to go into businesses to clean up all the crap that's been made. Maybe not, but maybe. I don't know. I've been around long enough to go that could happen. There's always bubbles in our industry, and even with like something like blockchain that is based on the idea of and the design of immutability. Immutability is great. We use immutable databases. Look at a GitHub or look at a Git repo. It is immutable by default, or that's just the way it is. And there's good reasons for it to be the way it is. So there's, the whole blockchain thing. Do you even hear about that anymore? Not really, but are there valid cases for immutable data stores? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know some people say that's not what blockchain is and smart contracts and all that other stuff. I get that, but I've seen time and time again, you have these things where they take off, and to be cynical, sometimes it's because people need to sell something. And so they oversell it. And then people go, oh, wait, I need to use this and blah, blah, blah. We need to use this because we've invested in it. It's because we've invested in it, we need to use it. And I've always been of the mindset of let's use something if it has value, if it provides a lot of value, And so, I don't know. I'm still waiting for are we going to finally figure out where this is actually done really well and not? I'm very dismayed at the AI, I'm very dismayed with how AI is being used to basically steal content creators' work. That is absolutely unethical, and I really, really get disparaged as to how that's being used. Even like when I see an AI image that gets generated, even if it's for a political view or a religious view that I agree with, I'm still sitting there going, no, don't do that. Don't do that. That's just, no, I'm not very happy about that type of thing. My big worry is that there will be an event worse than Therac 25. Reminded me again what Therac 25 is. I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm not sure. I have an idea as to, I think, what you're getting at, but I'm not sure if that's actually it. So I ranted for about 10 minutes on AI. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying all of it should be canned and all of it should be thrown into the trash. No, I don't agree with that at all either. But I think we have to be objective. We have to look at when things work well and when they don't. If you're trying to find statistics to prove your thesis that it works, that's not good science. That's not a good way to approach it. You should be going, well, does this help developers? And there have been studies that have been done recently too that have shown that it actually slows developers down. especially if they have more experience. So there's that too. It was radiation therapy machine that killed a bunch. Oh yeah. That was a it grossly over radiated people because of an issue there. What was that one Mars mission that, because this is why we shouldn't be using freedom units in measurements, but I say that sarcastically because I really hate the imperial system. But like, it was one part of it was using metric and one part was using imperial, and as it was going to Mars, there was this little discrepancy about how far away it was or whatever, but that built up over time, and as it started getting in close to Mars and it was going to do its landing sequence, its calculation about where it was related to the surface of Mars was off, and it just crashed right into the planet. Billions of dollars just gone. And, you know, another mistake like that. So yeah, writing software is still not easy. You really got to think about what you're doing and make sure it's correct and right. So, anyway. So, with all that ranting aside, I did see that it all tests pass, so I added a goto checker. Now, unfortunately, I've had an issue where I use my Transpire Scenarios project, and it's not been working to pick up let's see, Transpire Scenarios project, that it will sometimes. Oh, well, I guess if you wait 2 or 3 weeks, it just starts working. So now we see that. I'm wondering if I do my literal numerics. Oh, look at that. It should use separators. And if I say put a separate, look, Mitch, look at your code. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? That's just that's bringing a tear to my eye. Another concern I have is with the big beautiful bill having sections about preventing AI. Yeah, dude, don't get me started. There's so much in my country that I am just like, I can't even put into words. You know, I love seeing windmills. I love seeing us using alternative forms of power. I love seeing us moving more towards electric vehicles. I love seeing all this stuff, and to hear what I feel are morons talking about drill baby drill and clean coal and getting rid of windmills, and I'm like, why? I live in Minnesota, and this was like probably 10-ish years ago. We did a family, 10, maybe a little 8 or something. I don't remember, but my kids were probably 10 and 12 at the time. And we went out to South Dakota, specifically where Mount Rushmore is. And we went to the Badlands. We did hiking out there. It was really cool. I really enjoyed seeing all that. And, one of the things that's very apparent when you drive through the Dakotas and really the middle section of the United States is it can get really windy. And it's like you see these wind farms and it's like this is so cool because you're harnessing this energy and being able to use it in a way that's not causing CO2 emissions. You know, I'm all for that. And so when you see about that big beautiful bill thing about the AI, yeah, that's very, very, very disconcerting too. There's so much that's disconcerting about it. But what's not disconcerting is that it seems like this scenarios project is actually working. Goto detection. So let's put in public static class goto detection. I just forgot all my examples. I should have copied them, but let's see if I can do it off the top of my head. Use goto. So we'll say go to done, console right line, done. And yep, look at that. Strongly consider not. And the reason it's red again is because I have in my directory build props file analysis mode all. So, not that. I'm sorry, not that. Treat warnings as errors as true. So it will take what was a warning, and now it will turn it into an error. And if I'm like, you know what? No, this is something that's okay. I can just suppress it. You know, I can put it as a no warn in my project. So if I really had a valid case for it, then I could just ignore it in that case. But in most cases, no, you shouldn't do that. So yeah, this is kind of cool. I'm glad that I got this in. Now you could say, what about a code fix? Could I turn this, could I make it so that I could have a code fix in there? Good luck with that, because in maybe a simple case, you could turn it into an if or something like that. But how do you unwind goto in a consistent fashion? I'm sure, or I'll say I think there's probably a way to do it. But if you try to do it deterministically, that might actually lead to code that's even harder to read. So it might be better just to flag it and let, like, me as a developer go, well, just delete this. That's easier to do, you know? So that's why I didn't try to get into a code fix with this, because I'm like, nah, that's too much work. So, but yeah, I'm happy with this. I'm happy that I was able to put this in here and I can get these flagged. Now, hopefully if when I push out a new version of this package, which will be a little bit because I want to, you know, add in some extra things, some more stuff in future versions of my Random.Code stream, along with some things I'm thinking about with rocks. So yes, there's things in the pipe that I want to do. But with this, yeah, I'm glad you can just put it in your project and see if anybody ever used a goto. It's rare. It's rare that happens. But now it's automatic. And there will be no doubt as to if you've used it or not. So with that, I'm going to stop this stream. I want to thank everybody who's been watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel just yet, please do so. I would greatly appreciate it, as I'm now trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. That's my next goal. Slow. It's going to be slow to get there, but that's the goal. So if you'd subscribe, would appreciate it. If you've already subscribed, I appreciate you for doing that. Thank you very much. I don't know when I'm going to do another Random.Code stream, but there are ideas and things that I have in the pipe. So it's all about when the spirit moves and when I have the time. I will be doing Halo 2 gaming streams probably this afternoon and tomorrow evening is the plan. And I think I should be able to finish it this weekend. I'm not sure. We'll see. But I've been having just a great time doing the campaign and that, and it's been so much fun to play that again. I really enjoy it. So that is on the docket for upcoming streams. Also, this upcoming week, my sensei for self-defense is taking off this coming week, so I don't have any lesson. So I actually have Thursday night free as well. So I might sneak in an extra stream. We'll see. But with all that, I am done with this stream. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.